Welcome everyone. In this session, we're going to see how to enter the invoice in the QuickBook and how to check the receipt and how to receive the payment from the customer and how could you record it on the QuickBook. So let's have a look. In order to enter the invoice in the QuickBook, on the left navigator, you have to click the new section. Once you click the new button, the four section will be appear on your screen. The first section all about the customer. So this information, invoice, receipt payment, estimate, credit note, sales receipt, refund receipt, delay credit and delay charge. All of this information that will be relevant to the customers. The next information we're going to see, that's for the supplier, and that will be expense, check, bill, pay bill, purchase order, supplier credit, credit card details. On the employee section, you can see single item activity and weekly timesheet. On the other section, you can see bank deposit, transfer, journal entry, statement, stock quantity, and pay down credit card. Now the other section is only relevant if something you cannot do from here, from this three section. So most of the job will be done with this customer and the supplier section. So let's have a look at the first one, that is invoice. If we click the invoice will be open. That will be a blank invoice for your customer. On the invoice section, we can see the first thing we have the invoice number that is generated automatically. So when you enter the next invoice, the number will be automatically changed on your QuickBook. The next section we have on the left corner, there is a clock sign. If you click here, that will show you all the recent invoices. So clicking on the clock sign, you can see all your recent invoices. The next section we have the customer. If you have already customer on your system, if you type the first few words, it will show your customer name. But if you don't have any customer, you can always add one. So if you click add, that will allow you to make a new customer name. So the first thing you have to choose, the next thing, the email address. Without the email address, you will not be able to send the invoice by email to your customer. So you have to have an email in order to send the invoice by email. The next section we have accept card payment and set up direct debit. So the QuickBook offer two options. Either you can accept the card payment from PayPal. Basically, you can use all the Visa card and all of this American Express card through PayPal, or you can set up the direct debit through Go Cardless. This is the third party. You can always find it out with them, the cost and everything. The next section you have CC. You can always CC the invoice. When you send to the customer, you can always CC to your accountant or somewhere. You can always CC that. The next section we have the terms. So terms of the invoice, normally it is 30 days unless you want to change it by yourself. There will be billing address here. That will be helpful. Identify your customer address. And on the invoice date will be the date from that the invoice is raised or issued. So if you enter the invoice date, then due date will be automatically 30 days later. But you can always change it. If you want to give more credit term to the customer, you can always change that. And the date you can select from the calendar, or you can just type any of the date. Normally it will be the default date because today is 21st of January. You will see 21st of January on the invoice date, but you can always change it. So let's say if I want to make 22/01/21, if I put enter, it will show you the date. So basically put the arrow sign. All you need to do, you need to say date, month and the year. So the system will understand automatically this is the date. The next section we have the reference. You can enter the reference that you like for your invoice. So this reference number will help you to find it out the invoice if you like to. On the middle section you have the product or service. You can enter any product or service. For example, if you write catering, so let's say the catering information will come. If you have a new product or service, you can always add one. So you can always add the new product and service with the invoice. On the description, this information has to be there. This is the mandatory section. If you don't have this section, the invoice will not be saved or sent. So you have to enter this information. Then you have to add the amount. Let's say you can write the invoice amount is £1,000 and the VAT is 20%. Now, the VAT is always 20% unless you change it manually. For example, you can do exempt VAT, you can say no VAT, you can do based on the requirement for this particular customer. Then we can see the total due is £1,200 here. Now this amount you can also change if you want, but you don't have to. If you want to change, for example, sometimes if they are a partially payment, you can always change that. And on the class section, you can choose the class if you want to, but this is not a mandatory section. If you think that will be helpful for you for your transaction tracking, you can always do that. The next section we have here, the VAT. Is it inclusive tax? Is it exclusive tax, or there is no VAT? You can choose one of these the way you want. Then you have a location. You can always add your customer location if this is help you to identify. For example, if you have a same customer name with a different location, that would be help you. Like I have a customer name Edwin, so he's from London. I have a customer name Edwin, he's from Newcastle. I have a customer Edwin from Liverpool. So location sometimes help you to identify the customer place and which customer it is. Invoice number, you can change the invoice number here. If you need to change anything, there is a settings option here, so you can see how much is the deposit. So for example, if you see if the customer paid partially, not for the full invoice, you can always change from here. Then you have a product or service. You can always tick, is it a product or service? You can tick any of them, there is no issue for that. The next section we're going to talk here, the message on the invoice. You can write any message. For example, your bank detail. If you want to put any prompt discount, for example, if the customer pay within 15 days, he will receive another 2% additional discount. You can write any information that you want. After that, we have a section for the discount. If you like to add any discount, you can enter here, so that will be adjusted on your invoice. And once this all done, you can enter how much the deposit. Maybe the customer already paid some money, you can always enter the deposit amount. And once this is done, you can click save. Now when you click the save, that will be save, not send. So you have option here, save and send. So you can always check with that. If you click on the save and send option, it will have save and new. So once if I click the save and new, this invoice will be closed and another new invoice page will be open. The next section is save and close. If I click save and close, so it will be saved and the invoice will be closed. No new invoice will be open. Then save and share a link. If you like to share a link, it will be saved and link will be shared with the email. And save and share with WhatsApp. It is also possible you can share this information with the WhatsApp. For example, if you think you want to let your customer know immediately about the invoice, so maybe you don't want to delay when he's going to check the email, so you can always send the notification through WhatsApp as well. So if you click on save, so that will be saved as invoice number 1014. Now, as soon as the save option done, you'll see there is a new 4 option will come. The first thing will come print and preview. So if you click here, it will show you how does it look like on a PDF version. Then you can print it, you can download it. So this is the option for print and preview. Then you can do this one, enable recurring the payment. So this one, if you want to keep the same payment for long, you can always set up like this customer buy from you same time every month. So you can always do some automatic setup for this customer. The next section is customize. If you want to change the invoice template as a customize, you can always do that. Another more section, if you want to see the journal transaction, so what is debit and what is credit. So here we can see when I have make a credit sale, I create a credit customer. So of course this account will be debit, the customer account, and the income account will be credit. So if you click on the journal, transaction journal, it will show you the transaction journal. The next section we have delete. If you think there is a mistake on the invoice, you can always delete it, you can void it, and you can copy for the next reference. Then the last section we have for the audit history. The audit history will tell you every time when you do something on the QuickBook. So even if you delete, if you add, all the history you will find on the audit section. So once you're happy with that, you can say save and send. That will be sent to that person. And if you think save and close, that will be saved and close. So that's how we can enter the invoice into the QuickBook. The next section we're going to discuss, that will be receive payment. So the same way, from the new section, you will click receive payment, and that will take us to the section where we can enter the payment that we receive from the customer. So from this section, whatever invoice was due from the customer, and if the customer paid to us, we can enter the amount here, and how we receive the money from the customer we can record here. For example, let's say if you already know the customer, you can type the name, you can select from the clockwise. If you click there, you will see here the recent, all the payment you received. So let's say if I write Edwin Co, and that will give us the information how much amount is due from this customer. Now we can see there is two amount due, two invoice number 1013, invoice number 1014. If we receive both, we can record both. Or if the customer paid to you partially, we can always change the amount from here. So rather than writing 3000, the full amount, we can always change here. We can write 2000, 2500. How much we receive from the customer, we can enter this amount here, and after that we can do save. Now if we record the full amount, the invoice will be fully paid. If we record the partially amount, then some amount will be still outstanding from this customer. The next section we have the payment method. This is very important. How did we receive the money? If we said cash, then obviously that will be on the cash section. So how much we received cash from which customer. If we received the card or check, we have to record that. Let's say we received check, and we have to enter where the money goes to. So if we receive in the current account, we record in the current account. So normally the money will come to the business bank account. So if the money come to the business bank account, you record the current account, so the money will be deposited there. So balance on your QuickBook for this current account will go up because of this money receipt. So once everything is done, all you need to do, you can click here, save and new, or you can do save and send. So save and new will take you to another receipt section, or if you said save and close, that will be save, and this information will be closed from here. The next section you're going to see, that is called receipt. Sometimes we get a bit confused between the difference of invoice and the sales receipt. Now the main difference for the sales through invoice and the sales receipt is, sales through invoice is a credit sale. So when you make a credit sale, we create the invoice. But if a customer paid to us immediately, so we don't have to give any credit terms, so we called it cash sale. So we make a sales now, and the customer paid me immediately, so there is no need to raise invoice for that customer. So on the sales receipt section, you can see the receipt number, and you have to choose the customer, from which customer you receive the money. So if the customer is already there, if you write there, you can add the email address if you like to send a copy of that. That will be the billing address. You can see here, like invoice, we don't have any invoice issue date, we don't have any due date. All you need to enter which date we received the money from this customer. So remember, when there is a credit sale, the customer going to pay us later. On that case, we enter the invoice. But if the customer buys something and paid to me immediately, we don't have to raise the invoice because the customer paid immediately. It's a cash transaction. All you need to do, we need to enter the sales receipt date and the payment method, how we receive the money from the customer. Let's say we receive through cash, we record the cash. After that, what did we sell to them? So we write the product or services, any services you give, you write it down here. How much was the amount? Let's say 500. So with the VAT, how much it will be? So it will be calculated automatically. If there any discount you given, you write it down the discount here. And once you're done everything, all you need to do, either you save it or save and send, then it will go to the customer email, or you can save and close. So that's how you can enter the sales receipt when you sell something to the customer and the customer paid to you immediately. So from this session of this QuickBook, we have learned how to enter the invoice, how to record received payment from the customer, and how to record the sales receipt. On the sales receipt, as there is no debtors will be created, so the journal will be here, income account will be credit, and the payment account will be debit. For example, if we receive the money on our bank account, so bank will be debit and the income account will be the credit. On the other hand, for the invoice, the debtors account will be debit because we didn't receive the money yet, and the income account will be credit. You can always click on the more section after you save, and if you like to check the transaction journal, you can always do that.